Today's television program examines another aspect of the broad mosaic of the Right to Life movement. Post-abortive women who not only regret their abortions, but who are taking action to counter the devastation and hurt caused by an abortion. Both of today's guests experienced an abortion. What were their circumstances that caused them to proceed with ending their child's life? Did they experience emotional or psychological pain after the abortion? And since then, what life journey did they take that leads them to be on this show today called Life Matters? Today's guests have answers to these questions, provide their perspectives, and much, much more. I confidently believe you'll find today's show to be unique, informative, content-rich, truthful, and thought-provoking. Well, welcome to our guests, Kelly Roy and Tracy Reynolds. Nice to have you.
Thank you. Great to be here with you.
Nice to have you. Tracy came all the way from El Paso or
San
Antonio, Texas. Why, goodness gracious. Well, before we get started, I'd just like to mention the call-in phone number. Should any of our viewers have questions for our guest, it's 617-708-3290. Well, Kelly, let me start with you. Could you give your personal testimony on what led you to have an abortion?
Sure. It was 7 years ago this past August, so this August would be 8 years. I found myself pregnant for the second time. I had already had a daughter in high school who was young at the time. And with my first child, abortion was not an issue. It wasn't even something that I considered. The second time, I got a lot of comments and some pressure that I just really became very afraid. I didn't really want to do it, but I made the appointment anyway.
Were you a single mother at the time?
Yes, yep, I was. I didn't really want to do it. It was something, like I said, that just brought a lot of stress, but I made the appointment anyway. The day that I showed up for the appointment, they make sure that you're at least 8 weeks pregnant. They did blood tests and different things like that. I was 9.5 to 10 weeks pregnant at the time. What happened is they bring you into a different room and they counsel you. I was told, things about my body that I already knew, and they told me what the procedure basically was like, and that it was just mild cramping. It wouldn't be a lot of pain. And really, the counseling consisted of just telling me I was doing the right thing. You're young, you're in college, you already have a child.
You had a child, you were in college, but you had a teenage child?
No. I had my daughter when I was a teenager in high school.
Oh, I see.
And I graduated and moved on to college.
I got you.
Yes.
Okay.
So during this time, they bring you into a couple of different rooms, and I remember sitting there and just being really nervous and crying during this time of counseling, and that was never asked. Nothing was, are you okay? Nothing like that. I was brought to the procedure room. The doctor, I never met the doctor. She just came in and out very quickly. The procedure was very painful.
So you didn't know your doctor's name?
No, I did not. They may have said this is Dr., but I don't remember that because she just came in for the procedure, and as soon as it was done, she left to the next room.
And you were saying it was painful?
It was very painful. It was excruciating, a lot of cramping. When it was over, I went into the recovery room, and they give you cookies and soda, and they give you a birth control prescription, and they send you home. So I went home and thought there was somewhat of a sense of relief. Okay, well, at least that pain is over, and what you were going through during that time is over. Until I got home and was cramped 2 days later and was cramping very badly, and went into the bathroom and felt as though I had passed something. And when I looked down in my hand, there was my baby. And I saw where the eyes were forming. I saw that the skin was translucent, small, very small. I saw little hands and feet.
This was at around 10 weeks?
About 9.5 to 10 weeks, yep. And I was horrified, absolutely horrified. I couldn't even believe what I was seeing, and immediately ran to the phone and contacted the abortion facility that I had gone to. And all they said to me was, well, that's too bad. And then they immediately hung up the phone on me. At that point, I went into almost a state of shock. I couldn't believe what I had seen, and a lot of things had happened. I stopped eating. I dropped out of college. just downward spiral from that point. It wasn't until later when I was sitting down with my parents that they had said, you know what, we really think that this is something emotional or spiritual. It's not something...
Did they know you had had an abortion at this point?
No, at this point they didn't, but I had gotten so sick from stomach problems, and they realized that something was going on, so they sat down and talked with me, and it was like a floodgate, like the dam had broken. I just started weeping and crying for hours, and I couldn't stop, and finally had admitted and confessed to them that you know, was what I'd done.
How long was this after you had had the abortion?
9 months.
9 months after you've... So for 9 months, your folks had no idea that you had...
I had no idea.
I see.
Had no idea.
Oh, go ahead.
So actually, really, it was my mom who had... Because I couldn't speak, my mom had said to me, "Oh, Kelly, did you have an abortion?" And I continued to cry, and that was the turning point. I'm really blessed because a lot of women go 10 plus years before they ever come to that point, but I was 9 months, and I started my journey of healing and getting counseling, and then came to Operation Outcry after that. But
where did you get your healing process, or what organization did you go to?
It was different. It was different counseling and reading the Bible studies that they have over the years. But it was counseling that is really what I had. Individual counseling and different within the church and outside is really what brought me through. And reading, the Bible study that.
And how did that lead you to Operation Outcry?
It was kind of a divine thing, actually. I was standing outside one day with a friend, and we were at the corner. There was an abortion facility down the way, and we weren't protesting, but we were kind of standing there. And this woman came by with at the time, they were called affidavits, and she said, "These are, how you could fill out your testimony about what happened, and they're using them for different things, and da-da-da-da-da." And I contacted them and said, "I'd like to share my story." And that's where it all began. I see. So was it someone from Operation Outcry? Or? Yeah, I talked to the director at the time and shared my story with her, and eventually became the New Hampshire state leader. And then I started Campus Outcry, which is kind of like an arm of Operation Outcry.
I see. Now, how about yourself, Tracy? You've also a post-abortive woman. Tell us your story.
Sure. I was born on the island of Saipan, and my father was in the CIA at the time. And when my mom was pregnant with me, she was given a vaccination for the German measles because she had been exposed to it, and that resulted in me being blind. And so years later, she told me that if abortion had been legal back then, that she probably would have aborted me because they had a lot of concerns about what the birth defects would be from the German measles, et cetera. And so by the grace of God, I'm here.
Right.
And I grew up in California, lived a normal life, grew up really doing everything that all the other kids did, which when I got older got me in a little trouble.
Right.
But I never had a really close relationship with my mom. I think that there was a lot of guilt and some issues with her. And so I moved out when I was 16. And I remember her calling me one day, and she was crying, and she said, "I'm really concerned because I don't think that you're ever going to have a life like I did, that you're ever going to get married and have a relationship with a man." And I remember being really angry at the time, and then hurt. And I think what I did when I processed it years later is that I took that as a challenge. And so I went to school, I went to college, I came to know the Lord. And then I got into some self-destructive behavior, and I think it was a way of trying to prove her wrong by getting involved in what we call impossible relationships.